Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be a guest designer for Scrapping for Less. I've created 10 cards with their Flavor of the Month card kit for October, and the theme of this card kit is Joy to the World. As you've probably already guessed, this is all about Christmas card crafting. Christmas cards, I think, are my favorite kind of cards to make, so I was super excited to see the contents of this kit. Let me go ahead and show you what's inside. These first 4 collections and the cardstock are what you get with the Double Dip Sundae. I'm going to show you what's inside each of these collections, but I just wanted to show you how cute they're packaged. It's so much fun. So these first 4 bags are your Double Dip Sundae, and then if you order the Banana Split card kit, you get this extra bag of goodies. All of these items are subject to change if necessary. But let me tell you, whatever they're going to put in these bags is going to be fabulous. I really enjoyed working with this collection. The cardstock included is Paper Bag Craft, Jelly Bean Green, Cotton Candy, Wild Cherry, Red Hot, Berrylicious, and 2 sheets of Nina 110-pound smooth white Solar Crest cardstock. And as I mentioned, those are included with the Double Dip Sundae. Now let's take a look at what's inside these collections. I love how they put them in these cute cellophane bags. This is collection number 1. And in each collection, they do include a white envelope. I'm going to be making 2 cards with each collection, but they give you so much stuff that you could make a lot more. These first 2 tags I'm showing you are called Silver Bell tags, and they're by Kaiser Craft. And I love how the pattern continues on the back. They're so pretty. Then there's the 2 strings there included for the tags. These sequins are beautiful. I love all the little shapes. There's hearts and trees, and they're by Buttons Galore. This darling stamp is by Stamping Bella, and it's called Christmas Bug. The ephemera included in this collection is called Christmas in the Village. So many cute shapes and images. I love these little houses. I love using ephemera for really cute and quick cards. The pattern paper included in this collection is also called Christmas in the Village, and it's by Bo Bunny. I'm going to show you these cute patterns. I love this white polka dot on the green. You get some mistletoe. All of it is just so fun and pretty. It has a nice weight to it. And this piece right here is my favorite with the pink background and the houses. Now on to collection 2. Each collection comes with a stamp set. And I got to tell you, the one from this one really excited me when I saw it. I'm a big fan of Gina K design stamps. Let me pull this out and I'll show you what's inside. So here's this beautiful stamp set. It was designed exclusively for Scrapping for Less. These gorgeous sequins are again by Buttons Galore. The cute ephemera in this collection is called Here Comes Santa. I like these little punch outs that say naughty and nice. This one says No Humbug Zone and Jingle All the Way. And then this is such a beautiful ribbon. It's by Doris, and it does come in various colors. I got this gorgeous dark green color. It's a full-sized spool of that. This pattern paper is from Photoplay, and it's also called Here Comes Santa. It is double-sided. I do have a hard time cutting into pattern paper that's double-sided, but it's so gorgeous that I use this pattern paper a lot with these cards. Look at these cute cut-aparts. I just love those. And then I like that green paper on the back. Here's some more cut-aparts. That's gorgeous paper. On to collection number 3, where the last collection had a kind of an elegant feel to it. This one is more cutesy, and I just love it. The stamp set from this collection is by Pink and Main, and it was made exclusively for Scrapping for Less, and it's called Joy to the World. Let me give you a closer look at this darling little stamp set. I love the little carolers. These beautiful white sequins are from Buttons Galore. Here are some Christmas borders. And I love how bright these are. They were very fun to play with. And you can, of course, cut them down to whatever size you want them to be. You get a few Christmas wooden shapes. And I really enjoyed playing with these. I end up using them on a couple of my cards. They're so pretty. You get your white envelope, as with all of the collections. And this pattern paper is called Jolly, and it's also from Pink and Maine. It's also double-sided. And this pattern paper really appealed to me because I like a little bit of pink with my Christmas greens and reds. And these are just adorable. I end up using a lot of this as well. Now for the last collection from the Double Dip Sundae. I'll pull this out of the bag so you can see this. This stamp set is so cute. It's called Cookies for Santa, and it's from Scrapping for Less. The sequins are also by Buttons Galore. They just have some beautiful sequins. I like how bright these ones are. These are some sugar cookie die cuts from Scrapping for Less. I used a lot of these on my cards as well. And then you get a variety of transparencies, and they come in Christmas variety of green and red. I'll show you what they look like with this envelope as a backing. It's like foiled transparencies. They're so beautiful, and you get a lot in this collection. I think they would be beautiful for shaker card windows. And I'll open this little package of green transparencies, and you get 6 in this little package. Just being careful to pull these out without wrinkling them. And here they are. The camera really doesn't do these justice. They're so beautiful and shiny. But the white envelope really helps to show these off. I love the Christmas tree one. And then you get another music pattern. And some more snowflakes or stars. Those are so pretty. This pattern paper has a very retro feel to it. It's from Echo Park, and it's called Santa's Workshop. I love these cut-aparts. I end up using some of them. It's also double-sided, and it has a nice weight to it. And they're just very pretty patterns. I like this naughty or nice monthly checklist. It's so cute. Then you have the wreaths and the Christmas baubles. I had a hard time figuring out which one to use first. They all caught my eye. Now let's get onto the banana split ingredients. At the banana split level, you'll get all the ingredients of the Double Dip Sundae. There are a lot of extra fun goodies in this package. And I just love this stamp set. It's called Reindeer Games, and it's by Scrapping for Less. And you also get this tag die. There will be a variety of sizes for this, but I like this size I got. All of the tag dies I have currently are very small, so this was just perfect for my collection. You get this darling jute stocking, and you can put something inside of it. And I use this for my very last card. It's just so adorable. And you get some stickles. I just love stickles. You get sugar or frosted lace. I got the frosted lace stickles. This is a sheet that you can download from the Scrapping for Less website. This is a list of all of the items that are included in the collections. This sheet is the October Flavor of the Month card sketches, which you can also download from the Scrapping for Less website. These give you some great ideas on how to plan out some of your cards. Now let's get started with card number 1, and I'm going to use collection number 1 for this card. And of course, I had to grab this beautiful pattern paper with the houses. I also die cut some ovals with the cardstock that came from the kit. And I'm going to adhere everything onto a white card base. Now, I cut an oval out of this pattern paper just to salvage some of it, because you're not going to be able to see what's missing, because I'm going to put more die cuts over this. So next is the jelly bean green die cut. I wasn't sure if I wanted to pop up this pink cardstock with some foam tape, so I stopped there to stamp out the sentiment that came in the stamp set from this collection. And it says Season's Greetings. It's such a cute font. And I die cut that with one of my faux stitched banner dies. And now I can adhere the rest of the elements onto my card. I am going to use just some Gina K Connect glue to put down this pink oval. And then I'm going to put some foam squares behind this pretty tree cutout that came from this collection, just to give this a little bit of dimension. And I'm going to pop that on the card right in the center. I'm going to put some foam tape on half of my sentiment and some Connect glue. Half of it's going to be covering the tree, and I want it to be the same height. And I can just press that down when I like where it is. And of course, I have to use some of the cute sequins. I love this little heart sequin. And I'm just scattering those across my card. On the inside, I'm going to use another strip of this pretty pattern paper. And also, this little tree was a part of the ephemera from this collection. And then I'm going to use the stickles over the baubles on this tree. I'm going to put that away to dry, and when it's dry, it has such pretty sparkle to it. And that finishes off card number 1. And here's a peek at the inside. On the next card, I'm going to be doing some coloring with some Prismacolor pencils. So I'm pulling out some Gina K design paper that I like to use when I'm going to color with colored pencils. I'm just going to cut a panel of that down and stamp out this cute bug with the tree inside of it. I'm going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp this. This is a nice crisp ink. I want to get a nice dark impression. I need to stamp it one more time because this is a new stamp and it hasn't been conditioned yet. Now for my coloring, I'm going to have it be a yellow bug. We have one of these sitting out in our garage. My husband bought it as a fixer-upper when he was 17, and he's had it ever since. And he did some nice renovations on this cute car. And I find it especially useful because it's where I hide all the kids' Christmas presents every year. I'm coloring this image in pretty simply. I'm just adding a few darker shadows. And then for the snow, I'm just putting a little bit of blue to indicate the snow, and then I go in with a darker blue for the sky. I decided to use some Jelly Roll pens to add some lights to these little twinkle lights and on the baubles on the tree. I kept the stamp on the door of my Mini Misty so I could go in and re-ink it again. This just sharpens up the lines. The Prismacolor pencils can dull the lines of your stamped image. I'm going to use sketch number 4 to put this card together. I stamped out the sentiment again that says Season's Greetings. I'm just going to cut that into a fishtail. I cut a slit up the middle, and then I'm just meeting the ends to that. And now I'm going to adhere everything onto my white card base. I'm adhering everything down flat, just following the pattern of sketch number 4. And it was fun to use because I came up with a card that I wouldn't have normally put together like that. And I really liked how this card turned out. The only dimension on this card is the greeting. I put some foam squares behind that, and I'm just cutting off the excess. I left a space on the sentiment strip so I could add some more cute sequins. I'm going to add the Christmas tree sequin there, and some more of the little round ones. Now I can adhere my image down flat onto the paper bag craft cardstock. I'm going to add a few more sequins around my bug. And the inside of the card, I just used some more strips of leftover pattern paper. I'll show you that here in just a second. Here's the finished card. And then there's the strips of paper I used. It matches the paper on the outside of the card. For this card, I was very excited to play with these baubles from Gina K Designs. I'm going to condition these stamps before I use them, and I'm just going to rub them in my hands. This allows the stamp to accept the ink better. There is such a large surface to this stamp, so I wanted to make sure to do this. I'm going to ink them up with some Distress Oxide inks. This one is called Twisted Citron, and I do ink it up twice. I'm going to stamp up the other one with Fired Brick. These aren't your traditional red and green Christmas colors, but I really liked these two together. It's more of a softer, maybe even a more feminine look. I'm going to heat emboss over these ornaments. So I allowed the ink to dry, and now I'm just using my anti-static powder, and I'm going to stamp up the sentiment right onto this larger bauble. It says Deck the Halls, and I'm using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This ink stays wet a little bit longer so that I can pour some embossing powder over it. I'm just using some clear embossing powder. This will make the sentiment have a little bit of dimension and be a little bit more shiny. As you can see, my Distress Oxide on this bauble wasn't completely dry, so it did hold on to the clear embossing powder. But since it was clear embossing powder, I just left it alone because it did add a little bit of shine over the bauble, so it worked in this case. On this red one, I'm going to stamp these cute little snowflakes or stars, and then the toppers to these baubles. These baubles were really fun to decorate with the different stamps from this set. It really is quite versatile and allows you to do a lot of fun stamping. So I'm using some Versamark ink with this. I'm stamping that up twice, and I'm going to pour over some beautiful embossing powder from Wow. It's called Metallic Silver Sparkle Embossing Glitter, and I really love this stuff because it does have a lot of shine to it. I'm going to melt that with my heat tool. And I'm just moving my heat tool around quickly just because I don't want to warp my cardstock. That looks so pretty. And now I'm going to put this card together. I'm using a piece of pattern paper from this collection, and I just love the red and black plaid. I'm also using another piece of the Jelly Bean Green cardstock. I used one of my circle dies to cut out this large circle. This is going to be the focal point for these baubles. And I'm using a very small paper hole punch to punch out the center of these hangers. And then I'm going to use some of the pretty ribbon that came in this collection. I'm tying this in a bow, and I'm going to do the same with both of these baubles. And then I'm just going to hang those from the top of the card. That looks so pretty. I love those two colors together. I am going to put some foam tape behind these. This gives the card some fun dimension. I'm using my penknife to put a glue dot behind the bows. I just want to make sure that they stay put. And I'm just scraping that off of the release paper. And I'm going to put a few behind each bow. These are pretty strong little glue dots. Once those have been secured, I can just flip over the card. I'm just going to use some regular Scotch tape to tape down this ribbon. I'm just making sure that's in a straight line at the top. And then I can just cut off the excess. I'm using some Gina K Connect glue to adhere this onto my white card base. And I'm using up the 110-pound Nina Solar white cardstock that came in this kit for that. The inside I'm going to design very simply. I'm just using another strip of this plaid paper along the bottom. Then I can just cut off the excess. And here's another look at this card. And here's another look at the very simple inside. On card number 4, I'm going to be using some more Distress Oxide. I've put some Post-it note adhesive along the edges of this panel. I don't want to cover this whole panel with the Distress Oxide ink. And I let this first coat dry and I come in with another coat just to get it good and dark. And then I can just peel off the Post-it note tape. And it looks more pink once I get rid of this green Post-it note paper. I'm going to let that to dry. And I'm going to start stamping out the baubles on this panel. And I'm using some Versamark ink for this. I'm going to use some antique gold embossing powder and melt that with my heat tool. And again, you have to make sure that the Distress Oxide ink is good and dry, or your embossing powder will stick to the whole thing. That looks so pretty. And then I'm going to stamp the smaller bauble 2 more times on this panel. And I'm going to do the same antique gold embossing powder on this. Since it's in the Mini Misty, I do like to stamp it up twice. And some of the embossing powder did stick to my card panel, so I'm just using a dry paintbrush just to brush that off. I'm going to melt this one. And then I can go ahead and stamp out my third bauble. Now that the 3 of them are finished, I can start decorating them with some of these fun stamps from this set. And I'm stamping out as many as I can at a time, just to save time. I'm going to use more of the Wow Glitter embossing powder right on top of the gold. And I think the gold and the silver look so Christmassy and fun together. It just looks pretty. Again, I'm brushing away the excess powder. Then I try to quickly melt these. I don't allow the heat tool to stay too long over the image. I'm using some black ink to stamp out the bow and the string stamp. I'm going to cut down this panel a little bit with a scalloped frame die. Just being careful not to rip the paper. And next, I'm stamping the sentiment that says Merry Christmas to you right onto this card panel. I think that looks so pretty down there in the corner. And I had to give up some of these cut aparts to use this green plaid pattern paper. But I really loved this particular pattern paper. The inside, I'm going to glue down another stripe and just cut off the excess. And then I'm putting some foam tape behind my main card panel and adhering that onto my card base. I decided the card needed a little something more, so I'm using the ribbon and I'm going to tie a little bow here on the top right corner. And this adds a really nice touch to this card. It just kind of brings it together. Just trying to make the bow kind of small. And then I'm going to use another glue dot behind it just to secure it. On the inside of my card, I decided I didn't want to waste that cute scalloped frame, so I'm just going to add that to the interior. I also decided to stamp out another ornament on the inside just with some green dye ink. And here's a peek at that. And that completes this card. Now on to collection number 3 and card number 5. And the first thing I wanted to play with was this darling stamp set called Joy to the World. It was created exclusively for Scrapping for Less from Pink and Maine. I'm stamping these carolers onto a piece of the Nina 110-pound solar white cardstock. I'm stamping them up with some MFT Extreme Black ink. It takes a few times to stamp up just because it is a new stamp set, and I like my lines nice and dark and crisp. And I'm going to make a mask for these carolers because I want to stamp the little lamp post behind them. I'm going to fussy cut this sticky note image out. I didn't need to cut out the whole image, I just cut it out the parts that I needed protected. And then I'm going to stamp out this cute little light post. And I should have stamped it up a little bit higher because I want it to appear as though it's behind them and not right next to them as it looks right now, but I do fix that here in a minute. And of course, I had to use this cute little bird image as well. I'm going to have him flying up in the sky above them. Very cute. Now I can peel off my masks and start in on my Copic coloring. And I'm going to do this off camera just for the sake of time. I'm pulling out the large tag die that came in the banana split package. I'm going to use that on this card. That looks so cute. I just love this tag die. I'm drawing in some ground behind them. I want it to appear as though they're on a little hill. I did go ahead and fix the problem I had with the lamp post. I covered up the lines with a Jelly Roll white pen, and that hid the lines pretty well. I'm going to use another sketch for this card. I'm using sketch number 4. I'm just showing you here what it looks like. So I did all of my coloring, and now I'm just going to put a little bit of blue sky behind them. To put in some shadows under these characters, I'm going to use some more blues. However, they look like they're purple, but they are the blue Copic markers. I wanted to use a different color than the blue behind them for their shadows. I thought this violety blue looked really pretty. I'm stamping out the sentiment, Joy to the World, on a piece of this cute green pattern paper. If the pattern paper isn't too busy, I really like to stamp my sentiment onto it. I'm cutting this down into a banner shape on both ends of it. I'm using some ribbon from collection 2 to put on this tag. And now I'm going to put this card together. I'm adhering down this cute pattern paper onto a piece of Berrylicious blue cardstock. And then I'm adhering that right onto a white card base. The tag I propped up with some more foam tape. And then I put some foam tape behind my sentiment as well, and I'm just going to pop that up at the top of the card. I had to use the cute little musical note stamps around these carolers. It adds a lot to this little scene. On the inside, I do like to use extra bits of the pattern paper that I used on the outside. Sorry if that gets a bit tedious, but I do make up for it on this card because I'm going to stamp out the little wreath image on the inside and color that in with a green Copic marker. I'm coloring in this wreath with colors that match the pattern paper. I really love the green and the pink together. And then I'm going to add a few more of the musical notes around this. To finish up the card, I'm using my white Jelly Roll pen to add some highlights on my images. And then a little bit of Wink of Stella here and there on the front of this card. And here's a look at the finished card and the inside. The focal piece of card number 6 is going to be this cute Christmas wooden shape of this gingerbread cookie. And I colored that in with a Copic marker. I wanted him to look a little more gingery. And I'm going to turn this card into a shaker card. Here I'm applying some acetate on this piece of pattern paper. And I'm building up my shaker card by adding 2 layers of foam tape behind this. A fast way to build your shaker well is to bend the tape over on itself so it's a double layer, and then peel off the release paper. And then you can kind of form it around your window, and it's already a double layer for you. I enjoy making shaker cards, and the sequins from these various collections are so beautiful. I wanted to use up more of them by putting them in a shaker window. I'm gluing this gingerbread cookie on this cute piece of pattern paper. I want him to be centered in the middle of this shaker window. Once I have him situated, I'm going to pour the sequins around him. These pretty white sequins kind of remind me of sugar shaking around him. I thought they just went perfectly with this card. Now I'm going to carefully place the window on top of this panel. And then I can trim up this pink pattern paper. I don't want that showing through. I'm going to attach this panel onto a piece of paper bag craft cardstock. I like how that looks behind it. And before I attach it to my card base, I'm going to decorate the outside of this panel. I'm using some of the fun ephemera from this collection to decorate it. And I'm also using the No Humbug Zone from Collection 2 as my sentiment. This would be a fun card to give to a child. And now I can attach it to my white cardstock base. The inside, I also stamped another sentiment that says, "Merry Christmas to you." And here is the shaker card in action. I really like the white sequins around that gingerbread cookie. Very fun card to put together. And now on to collection number 4. I'm stamping up this darling Santa image, but I want to cover up the sentiment. I just want the Santa for this card. So I'm covering up the sentiment with a piece of Post-it note paper. And then I can just stamp out the little Santa. I colored him in with Copic markers off camera just to save time, but I wanted to show you how I did the bricks of this chimney. It was pretty fun to do. I'm just using 2 Copic markers for that. I'm starting at the bottom just to follow the line of the chimney. And I don't want my bricks to be perfect. I want it to look cartoony and cute. I'm going to draw in all of the bricks. And then for the grout, I'm just using a gray pencil. Also some Jelly Roll pen just to highlight some of the bricks and to make them pop a little bit more. I'm going to cut him out with a frame die. And I'm actually going to use another sketch for this card. I'm using sketch number 2. So I've chosen all of the pieces of pattern paper I want to use. And I want to use this little cut apart from the pattern paper that just says Christmas. And then I'm going to start gluing these together. On this sketch, it does have some ribbon that you tie around the bottom. So I'm just using some silver and white baker's twine for that. And I remembered to do it this time before I adhere it onto my card base. I always forget that and have to pull apart my cards. I used a hole punch on this Christmas sentiment so that I could hang this like a tag on the side of the card. And then I can just cut off the ends of my bow. I'm propping up my main image with some foam tape. And this will also help keep the string in place. And I'm also going to use another piece of the paper bag craft. I really love craft cardstock. And then I'm going to adhere the whole thing onto a white card base. The sketch calls for 3 little dots on the upper right corner. So I'm just using some red enamel dots for this. And again, this sketch helped me put together a card that I probably wouldn't have put together on my own. So it's fun to see how they turn out with a little bit of help from this sketch. I'm using more pattern paper on the inside of this card. And one of the little ephemera pieces, this cute stocking. I'm also going to use the stickles along the cuffs of his coat and his hat. I'm going to let that dry, and it ends up being so sparkly and fun. It's just a cute touch. And that completes this card. On card number 8, I'm using some of the smaller images from this cute stamp set to create my own pattern paper. This is something that I really love to do. I'm stamping onto a piece of the paper bag craft cardstock. And I'm just randomly stamping the little mug of hot cocoa and the little platter of cookies. I'm using Versamark ink because it is a pretty sure thing when you only have one shot at stamping. And I'm even stamping them off the side of the paper. I'm using some colored pencils to quickly color in these cute little images. And this was a very fun and relaxing thing to do, just to sit down and color these in. And I'm using red, green, and blue. This is going to be another shaker card, and I wanted the panel colors to match my sequins. I'm not going to show all of my coloring, just for the sake of time again. I'm using a frame die to cut a rectangle out of the center of this panel. This will be the window for my shaker. I'm also going to use this die to cut out a red piece of cardstock, and I'm going to use the red frame instead of the pattern paper frame. I'm adding a piece of acetate behind this panel. I want my sentiment to be inside this window, so I went ahead and stamped that onto a piece of white cardstock, and I put a double layer of foam tape behind my window. And now I can just attach that to this piece of white cardstock. I'm just making sure the sequins don't get in the way of the tape. This can be kind of tricky. And then you do see the white at the edges, but that's an easy fix. I'm just going to cut that off with a pair of long, sharp scissors. I'm going to attach this red frame. That looks so cute. I also stamped out the Santa again, and I colored him in with more colored pencils. And I just cut around his beard and his arms so that it looks like he's peeking out from the window and waving. It's so cute. And then I can attach this whole thing onto a white card base. I'm using the leftover frame to glue on the inside of my card. It was so cute, I didn't want that to go to waste. And I'm adding more stickles around my Santa. And here's a close-up of my finished card. These sequins are so pretty. I just loved the little bit of blue in with them. And then I stamped cookies for Santa on the inside as well. For my last two cards, I'm going to use the goodies that came in the banana split package. I really love this stamp set from Scrapping for Less. It's called Reindeer Games, and I'm going to save that for my last card and focus on this darling jute stocking. I'm using another wooden ornament. These are really fun to color with your Copic markers. This is a little holly leaf and berries. I end up using a different ornament, but I just wanted to show you that. And I'm going to use some more of the red cardstock for this card. I cut out a piece from the center just so I could save it, because nobody's going to see that missing piece. I covered it up with a piece of pattern paper. I'm decorating the inside before I add my stocking to the outside. Here is the wooden ornament that I decide to use on this card. It's these cute bells. I'm coloring it in with more Copic markers. And then I'm going to attach this ornament onto my stocking with some more of the ribbon that came from this card kit, as well as a piece of twine. I'm just going to tie a little bow around this. This wooden piece was nice because it had a hole at the top where I could string in some twine. I'm leaving my bow kind of big, and then I can just cut the ends off. And I am going to secure that again with some glue dots. To attach the stocking onto the front of my card, I decide to use some double-sided adhesive, and this is really strong stuff. I didn't want this stocking falling off. This is a card that you'd probably have to hand deliver to someone or send it through the mail in a padded envelope. I was hoping to find a little mini candy cane to stick inside this, but I can't find any at the grocery store yet. I'm sure in another week or two they'll be out at the grocery stores. So I wasn't able to show you that part of the card, but I am going to add some more cardstock on top of this stocking just to give it the cardstock feel to it. So I cut out a toe and a heel and a little stripe of this red cardstock, and I'm gluing that down with more double-sided adhesive. I'm going to use a Jelly Roll white pen to add stitch marks around the toe and the heel and the top of the card. I think this just brightens up the cardstock a little bit. And that completes the card, minus the little candy cane I want to put inside of it. But this was a fun card to put together. I really love this jute stocking. On this last card, I'm going to use the cute Reindeer Games stamp set from Scrapping for Less. I'm stamping 3 of the images onto a piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock. And I'm going to Copic color these. I'm going to do it off screen just to save time again. This video is getting kind of long. I also fussy cut those images off camera. I'm using some abandoned coral distress oxide. I wanted to add a little bit of this cheerful red color behind my images, but I don't want it to be too dark. I'm just starting at the bottom where it's going to be covered up and carefully blending up from there. This is actually a piece of the Bristol Smooth cardstock that I'm using to do this ink blending. This piece of green paper is left over from my first card I made. I thought this would go perfectly to frame my little images. I also die cut a piece of the green pattern paper to go underneath my images. And I'm just trimming that down now, as well as the white cardstock. I'm going to pop up my images with some foam squares. Now I can take off the release paper and attach these to the front of my card. I did stamp out the sentiment on this green pattern paper, but I thought the pattern of the paper obscured it too much, so I decided to stamp it out onto a piece of white cardstock and just cover that up. I'm using another white card base for this card. You can see a thin sliver of the white card base from behind this panel. I'm adding several sequins around this card and some Wink of Stella. I like my Christmas cards to have a little bit of shimmer to them. And here is my finished card. The inside, I just added more strips of the pattern paper and the green cardstock. Thank you so much for joining me today and sticking with me through this long video. I hope you enjoyed it and found some inspiration. And a big thank you to Scrapping for Less for inviting me to be a guest designer for the release of their Flavor of the Month card kit for October. It's just a fabulous card kit, and I really enjoyed creating some Christmas cards with it. Wishing you an early Merry Christmas. Bye!